Volkes von selbst kommt. Wir wollen arbeiten, aber das Volk selbst, es muss mithelfen. Es soll nie...
A question many people ask is, why did Adolf Hitler act the way he did? Some say that it's all because of his father's abusive actions. Others say if he had just been accepted to art school, he would never have done what he did. I believe that there is no one answer to explain his actions. Some of his thoughts and actions were dependent on how he was raised and what he was taught. Other things were just in his nature. Some of his physical issues, like his suspected idiopathic Parkinson's disease, affected how he was able to move and get things done later in his life, which would give us a big factor as to why he never really did the, quote, dirty work physically, and had others doing it for him. If we factor in the suspected mental health problems Hitler had, like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and psychopathy, we can see that a lot of his actions were eventually nature versus nurture. When Hitler's mother died, it is suspected that Adolf had a mental breakdown. Adolf was absolutely devastated by her death. After the death of his mother, Adolf moved to Vienna to try and pursue a career in art. He was rejected from art school not once, but twice, and was obviously quite upset by that. About 2 years after his mother's death, he ran out of money and was forced to live on the streets of Vienna, where he was subjected to copious amounts of anger and racist rhetoric. He later moved to Munich and screened to join the Austrian military service. He was originally rejected as physically inadequate, but after World War I broke out, he was permitted to join. While he was in the service, he was physically injured and taken to the hospital, where he would be until the end of the war. When he learned Germany had lost the war, he was very angry and blamed it mainly on the Jewish people. The economic distress in Germany after World War I made it quite easy for Hitler to rise up the ranks of the political party we now know as the Nazi Party. After World War I, the severity of the peace terms greatly affected the German people, as they were already in a post-war economy and were now having to lose even more to the people they already lost to. Shortly after the end of the First World War, the Great Depression hit the world, and made the German economy tank even lower than it already was, leaving millions of Germans to lose their homes and millions to become homeless and starve. These people were tired, depressed, hungry, and above all, angry. And this mixture of emotions and economic problems made the best conditions for Hitler to worm his way in and tell them all he will fix everything and make it all better, you just have to follow his lead. Hitler wanted to use this time of confusion and anger to overthrow the Weimar German Republic, as he believed the state existed to serve the Volk, also known as the people, and in his eyes the Republic betrayed this. Later on, Adolf and his group tried to force the Bavarian government and the local army commander to proclaim a national revolution. This failed very badly and caused multiple deaths. Hitler was put on trial for treason and was sentenced to 5 years in jail, but only served 9 months. While in jail, he wrote the first volume of Mein Kampf. When we look into his book called Mein Kampf, or My Struggle, we can see most of his ideals and principles in writing. He expresses many times that he thinks we need to exterminate the Jews and the, quote, non-pure races, as well as individuals he deemed unpure. He wanted only pure Aryans to exist in Germany. Like many Germans, Hitler let the stab-in-the-back legend be his scapegoat for his anger in losing the First World War. The stab-in-the-back legend was a myth that Germany did not lose the war on the battlefield, but through betrayal back home. The Jews, Social Democrats, and Communists were held responsible. It is said that Adolf was exposed to anti-Semitism very early on in his life, as anti-Semitism was not something invented by the Nazis and has been around for generations. There is a theory said by many Germans that even the Jews that had converted to Christianity were still, quote, different because of their bloodline, and that they could never be a truly pure German. Adolf Hitler was a very angry man, and in some ways this helped him gain people's support so quickly. People could see his anger with the situation and how much he wanted to change things for the better, and this made them more inclined to listen and agree. Hitler was well versed in the theatrical world and knew how to make things dramatic or say just the right things to grab people's attention, and the amount of emotion he put into his speeches was incredible. He had the people in awe. When we look at pictures and or videos of Hitler during his speeches, we can see all the poses he made, or when he would put more emphasis or emotion on certain words, people would be practically entranced. There was a time in 1936 where Hitler used a confusing yet very explanatory figure of speech. Quote, I follow my course with the precision and security of a sleepwalker. Though he may have meant this to be reassuring to his followers and pull more in, it lets us see in between the gaps of his thinking. He could have been stating he could make the same decisions he made awake as he did in his sleep. This is also stating in a way that the decisions he made were so easy and straightforward he could make them with his eyes closed. He thought of himself as so strong and smart that no task was too difficult and he did everything with ease. Hitler was a very narcissistic person who loved and admired himself more than anything. He is said to have stated, quote, "I am one of the hardest men Germany has had for decades, perhaps for centuries, equipped with the greatest authority of any German leader. But above all, I believe in my success. I believe in it unconditionally." This statement shows us just how much he honestly believed in himself and thought himself above everybody else. After Hitler officially moved up in the government and became the Führer, he altered the traditional soldier's loyalty oath to affirm loyalty to Adolf Hitler himself. Shortly after this change, he forced the war minister to resign and took his place, assuming the title of Commander-in-Chief and taking personal command over the armed forces of Germany. He also replaced the Minister of War and stripped many army officials of their rank and power for allegedly not being loyal enough to Hitler and the Nazi Party. By doing this, he was showing people just how powerful he was and what he was willing to do in order to get what he wants and do what he believes needs to be done. Although, after Germany lost the war, Hitler ended up committing suicide and leaving all the others to deal with the consequences of his actions. Looking into some of the things Adolf Hitler has done and why he did them is an incredibly important aspect in ensuring history does not repeat itself. During Hitler's reign, millions of people lost their lives simply because he deemed them unfit for his world. When we look into his behaviors and thinking, we can learn how to see the signs of someone with the same thought process and behaviors and deter them before they do real damage to the world we all live in. Doing this can also show us that no matter how we think, there will always be people to oppose our ideas. We all live in the same world together, but that does not mean we see it the same. In the end, we can only affect our own actions. How we choose to respond to a situation is our decision, and we can't undo our actions or others. We have to learn to coexist with the people we disagree with. We can leave them behind and move ourselves forward and not let them drag us down with them, or we can fall with them. In the end, it's up to us to make a difference in our own worlds.